The confirmation of charges hearing in the case of the Prosecutor versus Dominic Ongwen at the International Criminal Court is scheduled to start on Thursday, 21st January 2016. The International Criminal Court, ICC, is the first ever permanent international court with jurisdiction to prosecute individuals responsible for the most serious crimes of international concern: genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. It is based in Europe, the Netherlands, in The Hague. The Office of the Prosecutor is currently conducting investigations in 8 different countries: Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, the Central African Republic, Darfur, Sudan, Kenya, Libya, Cote d'Ivoire, and Mali. In the context of the situation in Uganda, 5 warrants of arrest have been issued for top members of the Lord Resistance Army: Joseph Kony, Vincent Otti, Raska Lukwiya, Okot Odhiambo, and Dominic Ongwen. Raska Lukwiya and Okot Odhiambo passed away and proceedings against them were terminated. Joseph Kony and Vincent Otti, suspected of war crimes and crimes against humanity, are still at large. Dominic Ongwen, the alleged Brigade Commander of the Sinia Brigade of the Lord's Resistance Army, LRA, is suspected of 3 counts of crimes against humanity and 4 counts of war crimes. On 16th January 2015, Dominic Ongwen was surrendered to the ICC's custody and transferred to the ICC Detention Centre on 21st January 2015. His initial appearance before the court took place on 26th January 2015. The confirmation of charges hearing is a public hearing during which the ICC judges will decide whether or not there is sufficient evidence to establish substantial grounds to believe that Dominic Ongwen might have committed the crimes that the prosecutor has presented before the judges. It is scheduled to start on 21st January 2016. The purpose of the hearing is to ensure the fairness of the process by protecting the suspects from facing charges and going into trial without substantial grounds and evidence. The confirmation of charges hearing is usually held in the presence of the prosecutor, the suspect and his defense counsel, and the legal representatives of the victims. We asked Mr. Benjamin Gumpert, senior trial lawyer at the Office of the Prosecutor, which charges is Dominic Ongwen facing?
The prosecution says that there are 2 different types of crime which Dominic Ongwen should be held responsible for. Most of those crimes arise from 4 attacks which the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army, mounted in northern Uganda between October 2003 and June 2004. Those were attacks on camps where internally displaced persons in Uganda were gathered because their home villages had become unsafe. The camps were at locations called Pajule, Odek, Lukodi, and Abok over a period of about 9 months. And as part of a much wider campaign of attacks against similar camps, Dominic Ongwen, the prosecution say, is responsible for either directly leading or planning the operation of attacks against those 4 camps. And of course, when large numbers of men, mostly men, armed with AK-47 rifles and heavier weaponry, attack camps which are full of civilians, dreadful things ensue. People were murdered, people were dreadfully wounded and maimed, houses were burnt, but above all, people were abducted, young people, either to become child soldiers in the Lord's Resistance Army or to be sex slaves for the commanders of the Lord's Resistance Army. There were crimes going on which didn't focus upon one of those 4 attacks. They were the crimes of abduction of young girls, targeting girls of distressingly young ages who were abducted from their homes, taken away from their parents, and used initially, if they were very young, as household servants by the LRA commanders, and subsequently as forced wives and sex slaves. And we charge a number of different crimes arising out of that behaviour, crimes as you would expect, of rape, of sexual slavery, of torture. Second type of crime, which is not linked to a specific location, are crimes related to child soldiers. The use of child soldiers in hostilities, and lying behind that, the recruitment, the conscription of child soldiers into the ranks of the LRA. The dreadful truth is that almost every LRA fighter, whatever his age or seniority, by the period 2002 to 2005, had himself or herself been abducted. This is a classic case where victims become perpetrators. And it is in order to try to strike at that continuing evil that the prosecutor is keen in this case to prosecute crimes arising out of the conscription and use of child soldiers by the LRA.
Dominic Ongwen is represented by the Defense Counsel, Crispus Ayena Odongo.
The role of Defense Counsel is to make sure that, if it were possible, all the charges that are brought against the suspect, against our client, are dropped on account that the evidence and statements presented to support the case or the charges brought against the suspect have not been substantiated. At this stage, we are going to rely basically on the evidence and presentation of the statements by the OTP to build our case and to knock down the charges. We've done extensive studies, we've done extensive investigations, and we, in our view, we think that our client has been so improperly charged that the charges leveled against our client should all be dropped, and that is our expectation. If we can get all the charges leveled against or preferred against our client dropped, that would be our ultimate expectation.
Paulina Masida, the head of the Office of the Public Counsel for Victims, is representing participating victims during the confirmation of charges hearing.
2026 victims have been admitted to participate in the confirmation of charges hearing in the Ongwen case. These are victims of the attacks allegedly perpetrated by Mr. Ongwen between the 1st of July 2002 and end of December 2005 in northern Uganda and different localities of northern Uganda. Victims participate in the proceedings with a lawyer who is in charge of presenting their views and concerns before the judges. It means that via their lawyers, victims can express their wishes, can tell their stories, and the role of a legal representative is to be the voice of victims in the proceedings. In order for a legal representative to be able to present the views and concerns of victims, it is necessary first to meet with victims in the field in order to understand what happened to them, the extent of their victimizations, and what they expect from the proceedings before the ICC. In the Ongwen case, 2 teams of legal representatives have been appointed. One team is composed of 2 lawyers, Mr. Manoba and Mr. Cox, who have been chosen directly by victims in Uganda. A second team is composed by myself, Principal Counsel of the Office of Public Counsel for Victims, and Ms. Jane Adong, Counsel in the field based in Kampala. We have been appointed as common legal representative by the single judge of the Pretrial Chamber 2 for the victims who have not chosen a legal representative.
Pretrial Chamber 1 consists of 3 judges: Judge Kuno Tafasa, presiding judge, Judge Marc Perrin de Brichambault, and Judge Chang Ho Chong. Upon hearing all sides, the judges will render a written decision within 60 days of the final day of the confirmation hearing. The judges, upon evaluation of the presented evidence, can decide to confirm the charges and proceed to trial, or decline to confirm the charges, suspend the hearing, or request the prosecutor to consider providing additional evidence or amending a charge on the grounds that the evidence submitted appears to establish a different crime. At the close of the confirmation hearing, if the judges conclude that there is sufficient evidence to support the charges, the case against Dominic Ongwen will proceed to trial. In that case, a new trial chamber will be constituted for the trial. The judges would discuss with the prosecutor, the defense, and the legal representatives of the victims all necessary arrangements to facilitate the fair and expeditious conduct of the trial.